Welcome to House of Champions. The World Cup final is set. Argentina against France, but we've got so much more to talk to you about than just that game, which I didn't enjoy anyway. So I want to talk to some other people about some other stuff. We have the transfer guru himself, Fabrizio Romano, here. We have the legendary Charlie Davies as we join forces with In Soccer We Trust. And we also have Nigel reo-coker. It's in his contract. He has to keep turning up. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to House of Champions. I've already got one of these people alienated, but I promise you by the end of this show, I will have all four of them hating my guts. Let's start with you, Charlie, joining us from In Soccer We Trust. Charlie Davies, how are you doing, Charlie, and how are you finding this World Cup?
I'm loving the matches, goals, the excitement. It's just there's this cloud over this World Cup for a number of reasons. But in terms of the actual matches and the performances, it's been first class. I've enjoyed every match. You look at the underdogs, Morocco, Croatia, Saudi Arabia winning against Argentina to start the tournament. There's just been some memorable games, and my kids are 6 years old. I know they're going to be talking about this for the rest of their lives because they're hooked. They're into it. So I think by all accounts, as far as performances on the field, it's been fantastic. And come on, we took it to England as well. Let's not forget about the US. We took it to England. You know?
I mean, I haven't had a chance to vent, and probably don't have a chance to vent about how England were robbed on Saturday night. But I mean, I definitely think the US are the best team that England played at that World Cup. Obviously, that for reasons like that, I'm not allowed on in Soccer We Trust because of my massive pro-US agenda. But if you're an American soccer fan following the Stars and Stripes, there's no better place than a great In Soccer We Trust podcast. It's not just Charlie Davies, his former USMNT teammates, Jimmy Conrad and Heath Pearce. They're covering every angle of the American game with that perspective that only they can bring. And what a thrilling 4 years they have kind of ahead of themselves, because come Sunday night and Monday morning, it's all eyes on the US, all eyes on Canada and Mexico ahead of the 2026 World Cup. But I mean, I've left this man in the corner. I can't imagine Fabrizio has ever sat on a Zoom call or a StreamYard for quite this long without being peppered with questions. Fab, how are you doing? And how did you enjoy that game?
I'm great. Thank you. My pleasure to be here. Yes, I love the game and I love the approach from France, honestly. First of all, congrats to Morocco, because what they did is historical, is really incredible. All their players, the manager, really congrats to them. But I think France, with many players unavailable, because we speak about top players, Ballon d'Or, Karim Benzema, but also Paul Pogba, N'Golo Kante, Christopher Nkunku, Lucas Hernandez, Mike Maignan, many important players are not available, and they did it again. They are in a final. So congrats to both teams, and I think I 100% agree. It was a fantastic World Cup, and it's going to be an incredible final, I'm sure.
It's going to be an incredible final, but I'm sure there are a lot of Moroccan players who right now are wondering what January might hold. I mean, we could start with Sofiane Amrabat. I think he has been, to me, up there with the best players of the tournament. I believe he's already been linked with Atletico Madrid, but Amrabat of Fiorentina. Fabrizio, is he going to be a Fiorentina player in February?
I'm not sure, honestly. The original plan for Fiorentina was to keep the player because he was doing very well also. Right before the World Cup, he had a fantastic game in San Siro against AC Milan. He was the best player on the pitch, so he was already in top form. And Fiorentina wanted to keep the player, but now, of course, after investing around 15 million euros to sign him from Verona 2 years ago, now the player has a value which is around 30-35 million. They state in private that they want around 40 million euros to sell Sofiane Amrabat. So as of now, a lot of rumors on Liverpool, many other clubs are tracking Amrabat. They follow him. They know how good he is and how good he was at the World Cup, but also with Fiorentina. So it's true that there is interest from important clubs, including Liverpool. But at the moment, there are no negotiations. So there is no bid from Liverpool, no direct negotiations also on player side. The player wanted to be quiet on the transfer market while he was at the World Cup because he wanted to focus on the pitch. But I'm sure that starting from next week, something will move. Fiorentina will try to keep the player. The plan for Fiorentina is to keep Amrabat till the end of the season, and they'll probably sell him in the summer. But let's see if it's going to be possible, because with 35-40 millions, I think they will sell him.
Two questions for you, Fabrizio. We've obviously World Cup for the first time ever in the winter period, halfway through a season. Do you think that this could be the busiest winter transfer season we see in the history of football in general, just because of this World Cup and how some players have performed? And also, could you put us straight? in this whole Cristiano Ronaldo situation of what's going on?
Yes, of course. To answer your first question, I think yes. I think yes is going to be, if not the craziest, I think it's going to be super busy. A super busy transfer window, also because many top clubs now are trying to prepare deals for the future. So maybe to close the negotiations now in January and then sign the players, have the players available starting from the next season, as Chelsea did with Christopher Nkunku, who's going to be their player starting from next summer. So this kind of deal also for Josko Gvardiol, for example. He was one of the best centre-backs of the World Cup. He's been incredible, a part of that messy, incredible number, but we know how good is Josko Gvardiol. He's super young, and many clubs are fighting to sign him, but there is a chance for him to stay in Leipzig for 6 months and then join the new club in the summer. So I think it's going to be super busy for clubs who want to sign players in January, but also for some clubs who want to prepare the future. So I think it's going to be really busy for young talents and also for important players like Cristiano Ronaldo. Cristiano was in Madrid today. It was really surprising to see Cristiano Ronaldo at Valdebebas at the headquarters of Real Madrid, because it was not expected, but it was Cristiano to call Real Madrid to ask them for this possibility to train there, to keep his form at the best level, waiting for the new chapter of his career. He was together with his family, with his son, so he was training in a separated pitch, not the same pitch of Real Madrid with Carlo Ancelotti and with the squad. He was on a separated pitch, not to create any rumor or any problem. But I'm told that at the moment there are no negotiations at all between Ronaldo and Real Madrid. It's just something that happened because of the great relationship between Ronaldo and the whole club, all the people into the club, all the people into the staff, Carlo Ancelotti himself, and of course, Florentino Perez. But as of today, the only bid on Cristiano Ronaldo's table is from Al Nassr, and James was the first one to report for us, for CBS. So that bid is still on the table. I'm told it's still a bid that Cristiano could accept, but he has not accepted yet. He wants to wait. He wants to wait for European opportunities, and so probably James knows more than me.
Is MLS still a possibility with Cristiano, or Major League Soccer is something he's not even considering?
I think not now. I think not now for Cristiano. I think now he really wants to continue in Europe, or this crazy bid from Al Nassr is something that
if it's not now,
which MLS club would have the money to pay what the Saudis are offering?
I mean,
it comes from the league, James. It really does come from leagues and marketing.
It would take a number of sponsorship deals to get that deal done. But I'm curious, Fabrizio, across the World Cup, there are a number of players. It's the platform to make a move. Who has kind of stood out in your eyes in terms of players under the radar, that their performances have all of a sudden put them on the radar for a move, whether it's January or in the summer? I'm looking at players amongst the Senegals, the Australias, the South Koreas, Japan. There are a number of players who had strong performances throughout the group stage. So in your mind, who could be on the move?
I think the name we already mentioned is Sofiane Amrabat, because as you mentioned before, many people were really surprised in the football industry with Amrabat, especially in the Premier League, in the Bundesliga, in La Liga. They were really surprised with his impact, so I would mention him. With big surprises, I would mention a player that I'm told is in the list of many important clubs who you know very well. It is Yunus Musa, who's doing very well with Valencia and was very good with the USMNT at the World Cup. And I'm told that 2-3 Premier League clubs have started some contacts with his agents to understand the possibilities to sign him, if not in January, in the summer. But it was a big opportunity for him to shine, and I think it's going to have a chance in 2023 to move to the Premier League. So it's a serious possibility. And then I think it was a perfect World Cup for some players who were very highly rated, but not yet on the international top stage. Josko Gvardiol, Cody Gakpo, who's been fantastic for the Dutch national team at the group stage. So those players were showing like, okay, you can invest 70, 80 millions on Gvardiol or Gakpo or on this kind of players who in the summer were on different kind of value, but now are considered top players available on the market in January.
Fabrizio, we know obviously Chelsea have a striking sorted situation. Could they be tempted with the Gakpo interest now, or could they look at Gakpo as a big alternative for building for the future?
Could, yes, but in the reality now they are not negotiating for Gakpo, and they are not in contact with people close to Cody Gakpo. I think they will go for different kind of player in January after the injury of Armando Broja. I think they will go for a center striker, So I'm told they are already discussing internally on which kind of striker is the best solution, because we know that Christopher Nkunku is already signed by Chelsea, but it's for next season, not for January. He's going to stay Leipzig till the end of the season. This is the plan as of today. So they're going to sign him in the summer. And so they want to make sure they find the right player now to replace Broja, but Broja is going to be back. They have Aubameyang, they're going to have Nkunku, so they have to make sure they find the right player at the right conditions on a difficult market. It's January market is really short, and it's never easy to find the right opportunity. But Chelsea will be on it. Chelsea will sign a striker, and I think it's going to be more a traditional number 9 than a player like Cody Gakpo.
Just one last question for me, Fabrizio. Could you please explain to me what is going on with the Jordan Sancho situation at Manchester United, if you know anything?
Yes, I think it's a bit more complicated than was explained by Erik ten Hag in the last few days, also in press conferences, because as of now, he's in Holland and he's having an individual program to train and to be back on top form. He's on mental point of view, on physical point of view. Erik ten Hag, in his last press conference, he said he's not in best condition. He's not in the condition to be here in Spain with the squad. And so in the training sessions, he was not at the best level. On the pitch, also, his performances were poor in the last games of the Premier League.
That's an interesting one.
Yes, so I think it's a situation that is not easy to handle for Manchester United, because they invested big money on Jadon Sancho. But what I'm told is that Ten Hag is convinced he can do very well in the second part of the season. If he will be back at top level, Erik ten Hag did an excellent work, in my personal opinion, with Marcus Rashford, who was not at the top level last season with Ole and with Rangnick. He completely changed the situation around Rashford, and now Ten Hag is pushing in a crazy way to have Rashford to sign a new deal as soon as possible with Man United. The mission is to do the same with Jadon Sancho in 2023.
And Fabrizio, for a lot of the American fans, Major League Soccer has stated they want to be a selling league. Thiago Almada is the first active player to be in a World Cup final playing for Atlanta United. What does that do for his value? What are some of the options looking at Thiago Almada? Because I know Lionel Messi has publicly stated what a player he is and one for the future. What will that do for him?
He's always been in the list of European clubs, honestly. So his move to MLS was surprising at one point, because there were some European clubs tracking him, for example, in Spain, but also in Italy. Inter have always been keeping an eye on this guy, because they have a great connection with Argentinian players. And so Thiago Almada has always been in their list. And so I think being at the World Cup is something that is going to help his value, is going to help to say, okay, he can be on the international stage at top level. I think he needs maybe 1 or 2 more years at top level, also in the MLS, to show again his skills and then move to Europe. But for sure, the quality of this guy, since he was at Vélez in Argentina, has always been great. So I'm sure that Europe is going to be the next step for him.
Fabrizio, I'm going to read you a comment that you're probably quite used to getting at this time of year. Jordan Purchell asks, any Arsenal news? And he then asks, Mykhailo Mudryk to Arsenal. I mean, as we know, Fab, Arsenal really in the market for it. And they were anyway, before Gabriel Jesus' injury, but it's really upped the importance, hasn't it? So let's compare notes here. What are you hearing on Mudryk? And I've got another player I'd be interested to ask you about, but Mykhailo Mudryk first.
Yes, Mudryk, first of all, on player side, he's, from what I'm told, obsessed with Arsenal. He would love to join the club. He's waiting for Arsenal. He was dreaming of that move already in August when Brentford approached him. Everton offered 30 million to sign him, and Shakhtar said no. The real problem here is Shakhtar. And I think we have to respect also Shakhtar position, because they have a fantastic player in their hands and they don't want to sell him for 35, 40 millions. So at the moment, there is no agreement between clubs. I'm told that the conversations are still at early stages between Arsenal and Shakhtar Donetsk, but Arsenal are in very good contact and relationship with people close to the player. So Arsenal are working on player side, and then they're preparing to move on club side with Shakhtar in the next days or weeks. So let's see about the value, because all the people into the club at Shakhtar, they say if Jack Grealish, if Anthony were sold for 100 million euros or 100 million pounds, why should we sell a player like Mykhailo Mudryk for 45 or 50 millions? So my feeling is that they want around 65, 70 millions to sell Mudryk. And my feeling is that Arsenal will be in negotiation with Shakhtar and will try. But at the moment, it's not yet an advanced deal. I think they have a chance for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, it was notable that Shakhtar's president was in London this week, wasn't he? And I think we all know that Arsenal can be at the head of that queue and as you say, can advance quite quickly. But the interesting one that I've heard some speculation about as a potential option for Arsenal and for a lot of other clubs is João Felix. Are Atletico really going to let him go midway through this season?
Yes, I think Joe Felix will leave in the January transfer window. Sorry, I think there is a very good chance. The relationship between Joe Felix and Diego Simeone, from what I'm told, is really difficult, but more than difficult. He's not in the starting 11. He's never in the starting 11 of Atletico Madrid, and this is a big problem for the player with the qualities and with the skills of Joe Felix. So he wants to leave. He's open to leave. He's waiting for clubs to move and negotiate with Atletico Madrid. And Atletico Madrid, also an official position with Gil Marin, the CEO of the club, a few days ago, he stated, we are open to listen to proposals for Joe Felix. So I think now is the opportunity for the player to leave and to try something different. There is a point. In summer 2019, they invested 127 million euros plus add-ons on Joao Felix. So they can't sell Joao for 60 or 70 millions. They want more than 100 million euros. So let's say who's going to be prepared to invest that kind of money on a player who is not a traditional number 9, different kind of player on a January transfer window. So not an easy one. But what we can say is that his agent, Jorge Mendes, is speaking to many clubs about Joe Felix, including English clubs, but not only English clubs, also French clubs like PSG. Everything is open at the moment. It will take time. It's not something that is going to happen in the next days, but Joe Felix has very good chances to leave Atletico Madrid in January.
He's on mute.
He's muted. Go on, Nigel. It's your chance.
Damn.
Go on. Hurry up.
There's a vacuum in the back, so I took it on, put it on mute. But I'm curious with managers. Greg Berhalter for the U.S. men's national team, I know he's been floated and linked with clubs in Europe. Who would be a possibility for Greg Berhalter if there was a European club interested in hiring the American manager? And then just in terms of other managers that have impressed throughout the World Cup.
Yes, I think not now. I think it's something that could happen maybe February, March, because at this stage, I don't see many clubs prepared to change the manager. They already had this possibility during the international break for the World Cup. And so I think now that after Wolves with Lopetegui and many others, the situation is pretty quiet, speaking to European important clubs. And so I think he will wait a bit to see what kind of opportunities there will be on the market. This World Cup completely changed the scenario of the managers around the world because Luis Enrique is now available. He wants to be back on club football. So I'm sure that in the summer, Luis Enrique will be around. That could be a big option for top clubs. But also many, many others will be now available. Let's see what happens with Zinedine Zidane in France, because now they are in the World Cup final, and I'm not sure that they're going to replace Didier Deschamps with Zinedine Zidane. So there will be many managers available on the market. And so at the moment, everything is really open, but I think it's going to be next summer, not January.
Well, Fab, that takes me on to my final question actually for you. It's quite interesting. I'm sure you've seen the advert by the Belgium FA for a new manager and the requirements that they want. Do you know if they've got any managers on the shortlist? Like you said, there's quite a few available. Didier Deschamps is going to stay on at France. So Zinedine Zidane could be a manager that's available, but whether he'll be willing to take that. Are you aware of anything that Belgium are looking for in particular for manager-wise?
Look, after that crazy news and after the crazy story, I was asking also some people close to their federation to understand what was the plan. And the reality is that at the moment, they have no idea. They still have no idea of who is the right man to become the new coach of the national team. So it will take some time. They want to make sure they will find the right man also because Roberto Martinez is a part of this World Cup, but the job he did was really important, a great relationship with all the players. And so they want to make sure they find the right one for the future. And so let's see what happens, because at the moment is not something advanced. Also, let's see what happens with Portugal, because Fernando Santos is absolutely not sure of staying there, and of course Southgate with England. So there are many situations to clarify in the next days.
And I'm sure you will be on the phone constantly, Fab, trying to clarify them. And as ever, we are incredibly grateful for your time. It's always good to catch up with you, but we do have to let you go. On the other side of the break, we'll be chatting with Jonathan Johnson, a delirious Jonathan Johnson, as he celebrates France's victory over Morocco. We'll see you on the other side.
Thanks, Fab.
Thank you. Ciao, guys.
Don't stop watching Leo Messi, the man, the myth, the legend, Messi! The GOAT. Utterly explosive. The UEFA Champions League. Stream PSG matches live February on Paramount Plus.
Don't stop watching the world's best soccer. Stream every match of the UEFA Champions League live on Paramount Plus. It's soccer's ultimate annual competition, not for country, but for club, where it really matters. Sign up today for 50% off an entire year using the code ALLYEAR at paramountplus.com/sports. Jonathan Johnson is here. JJ, how are you feeling? Give us a sense of the atmosphere in Paris now. Is it blasé indifference as it always is in Paris, or is there a little bit of excitement at the prospect of making history, joining the great Brazil team as the only team to win back-to-back Mondial?
Hey there, guys. Great to be back on with you. Well, I'd love to know what's going on in the streets of Paris, but it's been work for me since the final whistle, so I haven't actually been able to stick my head out yet. I've seen some videos doing the rounds on social media, fireworks, so it does seem to be a more positive atmosphere than perhaps many expected, given that Morocco and France obviously do have quite deep links. But we'll see what happens and what unfolds in the next couple of hours. But obviously a great sense of satisfaction, I think, for the French, because let's face it, if they had gone out to England, or somebody else other than Morocco, at this stage, it perhaps might not be sniffed at. But to go out potentially to Morocco, come back to home soil with their tail between their legs, there would have been quite a sense of embarrassment surrounding those kind of circumstances. So I think many people are relieved in many ways after the test that Morocco put France through, because 5 minutes in, France 1-0 up. Many people were expecting them to rack up the goals. I was sweating my 2-0 prediction, which ultimately came true. But it was, I think, a far sterner test than many people had really prepared themselves for.
Yeah, no, JJ, it was an absolute great game, in my opinion. I think Morocco deserve all the flowers that we can give them, because it was a fantastic performance. I've said it before, watching this Morocco side from the start of this tournament to now, they performed like typical World Cups that we grew up watching, that made us love this game of football. There was a great fearlessness about them, great unpredictability. They were so brave in possession. They defended with their lives. They kept great possession, but they just weren't clinical. And I think if I analyze the game overall, for me, it reminds me of watching Argentina yesterday versus Croatia, where Croatia were the ball dominant team, but this didn't have that end product, that end bite. Morocco weren't too far off. The bicycle kick was a sensational effort. And I think for me, Hugo Lloris, this is the best form I've seen Hugo Lloris in a long time. But obviously watching him a lot for Tottenham, he has been absolutely sensational in this French team. We can talk so much about the players, but when you break it down, what people are going to talk about, it's about Lionel Messi versus Mbappe. You've got Lionel Messi sitting on the Iron Throne and Mbappe being the challenger for it. Both players, whenever they're on the football pitch, they warrant special attention, and they showed that. I think today we saw a glimpse of vintage Mbappe, even though he's still so young and he's still got such a high ceiling and such a long career ahead of him. But we saw the same thing with Lionel Messi yesterday. It really was a good game. And I think France showed another side of what they're capable of. And to you guys, do you think that Didier Deschamps gets enough credit for what he's done as a manager with France and how good a manager he is?
No, I don't think he gets enough credit. And it goes back to when FIFA asked the managers in the World Cup, do you want 26 men in your roster or 23? And he was the only person to pick 23, because he said, I can barely deal with 23 egos. Now you're asking me to add 3 more to the equation. You just look at how many options they have. It's constant. You bring in a player like Benzema back into the rotation and mending that relationship, but then not pushing Giroud away, which could have been very easy to say, we don't need you anymore. And then you have that tension. And once you lose Benzema, you go back to him and say, oh, I'm so sorry. That was never that was never a problem. And so when I'm looking at the group, man, he's done a fantastic job of integrating new players, keeping the old ones still engaged, and the rotations. Just a phenomenal manager. So now I'm thinking, what's his next step? Is he just retire and say, I'm good, I'm done, I've won 2 World Cups? If that's to be the case, does he continue? I know Zizou's sitting there waiting in hopes that he can manage the French team, but I just don't see him walking away. I know 2 cycles is a crazy long time, but why not go for 3?
I find it really interesting, your question, Nigel, because so much of this tournament, when the games I've watched France, I've found them not just unwatchable, but actually quite poor. Like, I don't think they play good football. I feel like they're less than the sum of their parts. But clearly the sum of their parts is such that, a team that's less than it can go and quite possibly win a whole World Cup. I thought today they were, after that fortuitous early goal, it was shocking to see a team with all that technical quality. play so cautiously, just as they had against England. But obviously, you do have to kind of acknowledge that at tournament football in particular, this is a results business. You can't, underlying metrics and XG and all those things, although they did get a lot. We saw 2.1 there. It all only counts for so much. It's about what the final score is. And this is a team of winners. It's a team that works for each other. And I think for me, kind of building on what Charlie said, the thing that makes you think Deschamps has got something is the way Griezmann plays for this team. Looking at that second half of his, he was N'Golo Conte 1 minute and Eric Cantona the next. He was phenomenal. And this is a player who turned up in a bit of form, but playing as a sort of super sub for Atletico Madrid. And he's built a team that has exploited this outstanding footballer and reminded us of what a talent he is.
I mean, I think playing on all of your points, because they're all valid. I mean, like Charlie was saying, Deschamps wanting a smaller squad than most. I mean, I think in many ways the factors leading into the World Cup, so many players dropping like flies through injury, actually really played into Deschamps' hands, because not only did it limit the amount of headaches that he could possibly have with that group of players, it also gave them some sense of injustice, something to kind of rally against and actually create that positive kind of chemistry and mentality, the collective strength that had basically been missing since 2018. Because let's not overestimate or underestimate how difficult the last couple of years have been for France. Or not necessarily difficult. France have been below par for quite a while after the World Cup. They were disappointing in the Euros. A lot of players not in great form, and James is totally right when he mentions how Deschamps has done so well to not only lead them as a unit, not always necessarily playing attractive football, but reinventing the likes of Griezmann, also reinventing the likes of Raphael Varane. Have Manchester United seen Raphael Varane in anything like the kind of form that we've seen from him in the last couple of games? I don't think so. I mean, I know he only has the one clean sheet now against Morocco to show for it, but there have been some good individual defensive displays from him. And you do wonder if he hadn't been in that sort of form, maybe France might have been picked apart earlier in this tournament, because the defense hasn't convinced me pretty much all tournaments. In fact, they were riding their luck as well at the end against Morocco to keep that clean sheet. But I do think there is something to be said for the trust that Deschamps has with certain members of that squad. And also, let's not forget as well, Adrien Rabiot, who's emerged as a very important figure, a very influential player in this side, dropped out through illness. And ultimately, I think Upamecano was less of a miss than Rabiot was. But like James said, Griezmann hopping back in to, channel some prime N'Golo Conte, certainly helped France see through without Rabiot.
Yeah, I think for me, when you look at everything, guys, we talk about teams performing. I think what we spend so much time is looking at the talent. We look at the team sheet of France and saying that we expect so much because of the star power and the quality that they have, but they haven't performed. But we know this game of football. If France go on to win it, if they go on to win it, we're not going to talk about how they performed. They're just going to be known as world champions, first ones to do it since Brazil, back-to-back world champions. It's a great achievement. And I think for me, when I look at this team, and like Deschamps said about wanting a smaller squad, what people have to realize is some people think it's easy to become a manager or to be a coach if you've got the best players. People don't take into account the personalities that you have to deal with in the dressing room. That is when top managers rise to the top. Because to get this French team to still be performing, and like you said about Griezmann, what he's going through at Atletico Madrid, but looking like Superman for this French team, performing, defending, attacking, not just wanting to be the assist king, but actually being in his 6-yard box in midfield defensive positions and clearing the ball. That is great coaching. That comes from a great manager. And the togetherness with all the egos, that is the big thing people don't realize. Like, we've been in dressing rooms, Charlie, and you know what it's like with some of these players and the egos that come in. Only top managers have that ability and that knack to get them to work together, to have one goal, one desire, and that is to be in the same page. And even when we look at it, we talked about Argentina as well, how good a team Argentina have become. For me, yesterday's performance is the best performance I've seen of Argentina so far throughout this tournament. And that's one good performance you can give them. So even for this French team, maybe the final will be the best performance that we've seen. But I think for me that it's just, we need to give a bit more credit, I would think, to Didier Deschamps, because to do that isn't easy. Because if it was easy, if you look at squad for squad, you'd have to say Brazil had the best squad of players and the best talent in this World Cup, and they fell miserably short.
I couldn't agree more.
As ever, yeah. Spot on from Nigel. Let's have a look at some of your comments as well. Remember to keep the comments coming. Xavier Park here, I like this one. Fighting till last minute, even though they were clearly exhausted, made me really like Morocco. And I have to say, I'm with Xavier there, because you could see before they took to the pitch that these players were not ready. Unfortunately, some of them for a World Cup semi-final. They put so much effort into getting past Belgium, getting past Portugal, getting past Spain. Nayef Aguerd, you're going to have to wait, fans in America, you're going to have to wait till he's on Paramount Plus with West Ham. That's when you're going to see him again. Romain Saiss as well, clearly hobbled, and he was out after 20 minutes. Mazraoui off at halftime. I mean, Charlie, obviously you played at a higher level than myself and JJ. I wonder if you could I'm sure you've been in situations where you know that key teammates are not fully fit. How much of a challenge is that for, if you've been that player or for you and your teammates, knowing that one of your most important players isn't really ready to go?
Well, there's a fine balance between playing your best player and knowing that maybe 60, 70% is still better than your substitute who can give you 100 or close to it, versus a 60, 70% that takes away from the team's performance and the ability to, if they're pressing, if they're playing on the counter, and he can't cover as much ground as you need him to. So from a manager's perspective, that's part of the trying to manage personalities and manage expectations that typically you don't talk about, because it's usually tactics, who's playing, and then the result, but not so much, man, the coach had to come up with this tough decision of playing a striker who can't give you that acceleration, that burst, but he's just so clinical that you have to start him, because if he gets that one chance, he's going to finish. Olivier Giroud looked, about 80%. He did not look anywhere near the Olivier Giroud that we saw from the first match of this tournament. So I think both teams look like they've got the heavy legs. The fatigue has set in, and you try and recharge and re-energize and get it back up to as close as you can to full strength for that final, knowing that this is the last match. France could turn on like that, and they could play poorly as long as they defend well when you have a player like Mbappe and Dembele, just because of that pace, that change of pace. And we've seen in 2018 what Mbappe could do to Argentina by himself. So if I'm looking at both squads in terms of X factor, France, for me, have that advantage, because Argentina don't have, yes, they have Messi, but they don't have a player who can just take off and capitalize on that one mistake, just because of the space in behind that Argentina may leave.
Charlie, just to jump on quickly in what you said there, when you said about, obviously we didn't see the great Giroud today, and I agree with you, but for me, I think that was because of tactics. That was because of how France set up, because if you see, France were worried about this Morocco side. They know how dangerous this side was. If you looked how deep Giroud had to drop at times to stop Amrabat for getting on the ball. We talk about how he protects the ball so well, defends so well, interrupts, reads the game so well. But what people don't see in the other side of his game is when you've got a ball winner midfielder like that, he doesn't just win it and give it away. He wants to get on it again and makes those forward passes. And he has the ability to make penetrative passes and very dangerous passes going forward. So he can control the flow of the game. So at times you saw Giroud dropping off, stopping him from having an influence, which just goes to show the respect that both teams had for one another. And I think what also I saw as well, JJ, probably you see it later on in social media in France, the respect that the players have for each other. Mbappe and Hakimi embracing each other, Mbappe celebrating, wearing his teammate's shirt and celebrating. And both the players, there wasn't just France went out there and started celebrating and going crazy, making the World Cup. There was tremendous respect going to the Morocco players. There was embracing each other. And I think that's great to see. I think you can be friends and compete, where some of the older generation we played with will probably be pulling their hair out now, saying that we shouldn't be embracing each other. We shouldn't be swapping shirts. We should be out there wanting blood. But I think you can still go and compete and have respect for each other. And that's what I saw. And I liked that.
I think it's a really good point, and I think it's one of the reasons why Sofiane Boufal was so quick after that quarterfinal to come out and say that Morocco wanted to come up against France, because it wasn't just a question of coming up and playing against some of their friends, some of their teammates from club level. It's a question of testing themselves as well against the players that they feel are perhaps one of, if not the best teams at the World Cup, perhaps certainly the best team in that side of the draw that they could have tested themselves against. They went toe-to-toe with them for, pretty much the entirety of the game. Now, Charlie, I've got a question for you, because obviously you spent some time during your career in France. You've seen sort of up close, what it's like with these different footballing cultures, mixing. First of all, are you surprised, at the success that France are having at international level over these past 4 years or so, given what you saw? But also, are you surprised seeing teams like Morocco, breaking out with many sort of French-based talents or players with dual nationality, given that there are so many of those kind of players that ply their trade over here in France?
Well, to answer your first question, I am not surprised whatsoever, because the talent is extremely high in the French education. The development is really refined on technique, and you could see that. There's a number of different styles of players. You have the Mbappes, but you also have like the Zizous, who are Algerian descent, and that's why I love what you said in terms of the respect, because it's almost like they're integrated. There's most of these Moroccans have played in France, have lived in France. They are French too, of French descent, because they've grown up there. A lot of them play with each other on the club teams. You feel there's a strong Moroccan culture within France, especially when you look at parts of Paris, but southern France. I mean, you got the hardcore Moroccans, the hardcore Algerians, and the Tunisians, and they are ever present. You see that. So I knew there was a mutual respect. And in this game, in France, if you are an Arab, it's almost like you're a second-rate citizen, and it's that much harder to break into the French national team. And so I think that they were playing with that type of pride to say, hey, you never really valued us, and look, a number of us could play with the French national team. A number of us can compete with you toe to toe, which we saw today. So that was brilliant. But the youth players in France, most of them are supremely talented, but then it comes down to discipline and ego and managing that, and that's always been a challenge. And it seems like as of late, now they're understanding how to have sustained success and being successful for a long period of time. Now France, it's the French moment, and you could see it. They're just so deep. I mean, they could field 3 teams in this tournament.
I mean, they certainly could. I've got one question for you before we dive into this, and it kind of comes back to one of the players I wanted to highlight a lot, which was Antoine Griezmann. And I know I've mentioned him earlier, but I think for me, there's a 3-way split right now in terms of the Golden Ball potential winner, the best player at this tournament. And I know these are normally decided before the final game anyway, but in an ideal world, it might all be up for grabs between these 3 players: Kylian Mbappe, Lionel Messi, and Antoine Griezmann for the title of the best player at the World Cup. But right now, if you had to pick right now, which the voters normally have to do anyway, so I can test you, starting with Nigel and working clockwise. So Nigel, who, and you can pick someone other than those 3, but who would you say has been the player of the tournament so far?
I'd have to say Griezmann. I really have. I know people, the thing is, when you watch football, it's easy to look at the best player and say, oh, he's the superstar, he's the best player. There's so many hidden gems that you don't see and understand. And for me, when you look at Griezmann, what he's doing for this French team, how really and truly he's been the secret 007 for this French team, Griezmann for me is the one. He's not getting the glory. Yes, he's getting the assists, but all-round play, everything he's done has been absolutely sensational. And when you take into account the mud situation that he's in at Atletico Madrid, our producer's team, I don't know why he supports Atletico, but they are absolute. We'll leave it there. But he's going through a tough time there. To come into a World Cup with that mindset and performing like this, it's sensational. And I'm only speaking from a player's perspective of being in that environment and situation. So Griezmann for me.
I'm surprised, Nigel. One, your position, you didn't rate Tchouaméni higher than that. I mean, he's been
Tchouaméni's been, yeah, but the difference is Tchouaméni's young, he's sensational, he's playing at Real Madrid, he's $100 million kid, he's performing at Real Madrid. Griezmann's coming from a very tough situation at Atletico Madrid, where they've been doing poor domestically, poor in the league, and you look at how he's performed, and Joao Felix is performing for this World Cup, and they haven't performed like that for Atletico. It's such a tough mindset to come in that environment and going into a World Cup and just performing like that. It just shows strength of character and the quality of player he is.
Yeah, but I'm disappointed in you. You just slap in your position for fun. I think Lionel Messi is who the media are going to be putting forward for Golden Ball. I don't think he is the best player of the tournament right now, but I think just with the stats and him carrying all this pressure and the weight of a country and the weight of Diego Maradona trying to be the greatest Argentine player of all time, but also the greatest player of all time, to have that World Cup trophy. I think that's what's going to push the media to say it's easy. It's Messi. But if France do win the title, I think Mbappe gets the Golden Ball. Not so much because of his performances every game. I mean, he's shown obviously his phenomenal quality, but I think it's just because of how he's been able to change the game and force teams to play differently, force teams to defend him with 3 or 4, as you saw today. Morocco had 4 players around him, and that's why his deflected shot was easy for a tap-in. But I just think with his ability, he's such a special player that he's shown enough to say he's the best player on that team. He's the best player on the field, especially if he has a memorable moment in that final that is a game-changing and gives France the title. I think Mbappe gets the Golden Ball for me.
Yeah, I agree with Charlie that I think that Messi and Mbappe are probably, the 2 most narrative-rich players to look at in terms of the award. But I agree with Nigel. The thing is, Griezmann, would many people have sat up and taken notice of how he's been performing if he hadn't got that pair of assists against England? You could perhaps debate it, but the fact is he was already leading the tournament in terms of chances created coming out of the group stage, and that included one, defeat for France in a game where Griezmann started on the bench anyway. So I think, really, if we're really breaking it all down in terms of, what an achievement it is to have Griezmann performing at this level and even being in the conversation, with Mbappe and Messi, I think is a huge achievement. But for me, I don't think that France get to this final, without Griezmann being in the form he's in. That's why I would place him just slightly higher than Mbappe in terms of his importance for France. I agree with Charlie that, Mbappe has been, crucial, but I don't know. It just feels for me like Messi is almost doing the role of Mbappe and Griezmann for Argentina, whereas you've got one of each, for France. And I think that's why, France will now be such a threat for Argentina in this final. But if you were asking me just personally to pick the best player, and I had to pick before the final, then I'd go for Griezmann.
Yeah, I'm going to side with my House of Champions family on this one.
Charlie as well. Oh my God!
Hi, Charlie.
No, I'm not going to side with my House of Champions family. Jude Bellingham. Who cares? Let's give it Jude Bellingham. Right. We will have a full preview pod on Friday where we're going to dive deep into the matchups. We're going to look at every angle of this Argentina versus France game. But maybe we could start with a few initial thoughts. I know where mine are. Mine are squarely focused on Theo Hernandez. I thought he was, from the moment he scored that goal onwards, I thought he was a real problem for France, especially, admittedly, Hakim Ziyech and Achraf Hakimi are going to ask you anyone questions, aren't they, playing at this level? But can Theo Hernandez slow down the likes of McAllister and Messi and who knows, maybe Di Maria? JJ, having watched that game, with a little bit of an emotional investment, where are you thinking you need France to improve if they're to beat Argentina?
I think we need to see more of that defensive grit and determination, that ability to dig deep, put everything on the line. I think there must be a temptation to, perhaps hook Hernandez, especially if France get into a leading position and maybe try and go for that flat back 4 of central defenders. Because let's not forget, Koundé has been playing at right back all tournament, but he is a central defender by trade. You also have to wonder if Upamecano comes back in after that. I have to be honest, I think Konate sort of lends himself to being more of a natural partner for Varane than Upamecano. Upamecano's looked quite jittery, so perhaps he'll be an unlucky victim of that illness that befell him just before this game. But I I'm still going to go with my pre-tournament prediction of Argentina winning, but I don't think it'll be a comfortable win. I think it'll be, by a goal. And to be honest, I could easily see France grinding out a win by 1 goal as well. It's really that close. I'm going to need a couple of days to stew over this one properly. But I do think that France need to continue, this good run of defensive form that they've built up, if they're to stand a chance of beating Argentina.
Charlie?
He's still stewing. He's still hurting about being the odd one out. It's all right, Charlie. You get over it, mate. You got thick skin.
Yeah, I got the thick skin. All right, I'm going to go with France. France win this because you look at those matchups and sure, if Morocco had somebody who could have that end product, and I just don't think they got in those good positions, but Ziyech was rubbish when he got into the final third today.
Just rubbish.
He was just rubbish. I thought you might like that. But I think Argentina gives too many opportunities away, especially the space, and they allow those 1v1 situations where Croatia might not hurt you with that pace. Ivan Perisic is more of a player who's going to come inside and create those mismatches, especially in crosses situations. With Dembele and Mbappe, it's a different proposition. France can concede possession. They can invite you in. They can say, hey, sure, today was poor from them overall with the possession, but today in the final they could say, Argentina, come. We will handle. We'll mark Messi. We'll do our due diligence, and then on the counter we will hit you. And in this World Cup, all you need is that one chance, and France could win this game 1-0. So for me, it's going to be the French that raise that trophy.
Oh, gentlemen, I love this game. Though we just love the game of football. It's fascinating. I think for me, honestly, it's going to be a tight game. It's going to be interesting tactics-wise how they both set up, because I think both teams are vulnerable defensively.
Mm-hmm.
But as Didier Deschamps said, and as James would like, against England, France rid their luck. And sometimes in football, you need luck. But today, they did show great determination. They defended with their lives. They're going to have that same application against Argentina. The way I break it down is this. Argentina have a good team, but yet they're still very Messi-centric, because Messi has to do the Mbappe job and also the Griezmann job, as I think it was James or JJ stated, which is so true. When you look at this France team, if you've got Dembele, Mbappe, Griezmann, Tchouaméni, and Giroud up front, they have so much more attacking threat and options that can cause problems against Argentina. Argentina's backline don't like big physical strikers. Giroud is a big physical presence, dominant in the air, and also knows how to play the game with great football intelligence. He can be a problem for this Argentina backline. And then you've got the likes of Griezmann coming in, picking up the ball, and Tchouaméni in that midfield. I just feel if France apply themselves pretty much the same way they did today, they will cause Argentina problems. And if Mbappe ever gets isolated in one-on-one situations,
oh, bye-bye.
There's only one defender we've seen who can handle him in this whole tournament, and that's been Kyle Walker. There's no other defender that can handle Mbappe. So I think for me, it's going to be tight. But if you look at the footballing aspect of it, France have too much for Argentina if France turn up. But I think it should be a cracking final. And what we also got as last point, James, for me is this. France could be on the verge of repeating history, which hasn't been done since Brazil. Argentina now could feel the real burden and the pressure of winning this World Cup since when was the last time? So I
86.
think there'll be less pressure on France, because getting to the final again with what they've been through is an achievement alone already. So there'll be less pressure on France, and it's whether that pressure really becomes too much for these Argentinian players as well. Will be
it's all on Messi. We know that.
There you go.
We know that Messi can rise to the moment, or it can all go a little bit wrong in finals. Either way, I think we know we're going to be in for a really exciting game. I do believe the last time these two teams met at the World Cup was slightly over 4 years ago. A 4-3 barnstormer, Kylian Mbappe scoring twice. I think we'd take that. I think there are a few of us that suspect that might not happen this time out. But I think that will do it for us here on House of Champions. There are our predictions for the semi-finals. I see there an impressive 5 points for James Ben, streaking ahead of
yeah,
Fabrizio Romano. There's a bit in the middle I can't quite read. I don't think anyone else can.
Yeah. I went with my heart.
Nigel.
Yeah, I went with my heart. I did it. I went with my heart.
Damn, Nigel.
I wanted, for the beauty of the game, I wanted to see a Croatia-Morocco final. For the beauty of football, yes, I went with my heart.
Oh God!
Get
that off screen.
That's your Griezmann.
They could at least spell my name right.
Wow.
The Griezmann pick. There you go.
That's what you get, JJ, when our producer is an athletic fan, isn't he? Not the brightest.
Hey, we didn't get to talk about this U.S. England game. Now you've had some days and weeks to reflect on that.
What is there to talk about?
How do you feel?
How do you guys feel?
James was here talking 4-0, 5-0, demolition derby.
Charlie, we've already started this Southgate for USMNT bandwagon.
Oh no!
Yeah,
stop that!
You need it. Oh, I'm sorry. He's not going to be an improvement. He's not going to be an improvement.
We don't want that. I didn't say it wouldn't be an improvement, but we don't want that.
Oh, what do you want? Let's just listen quickly. What do you want? Tell us, Charlie. What do you want?
I want Roberto Martinez.
No.
Yeah, that's what I want,
mate.
Would you take him as technical director and coach, or just the coach this time?
Just the coach.
Because football intelligence has to improve to a way another level, like the Dutch kind of taught you guys. You know that, right?
Hey, all I say is we have Roberto Martinez. Then we have the ability, we have the players and the athleticism, but we also have the tactical understanding of how to be
very tactically good with Belgium's golden generation, was he?
Well, he had his chance in 2018. It wasn't this one. This one was, they were doomed from the beginning.
Jesus Christ.
Need a striker more than a manager. I think Greg Berhalter is fine. Get someone to kick the ball in the net.
So we've got USMNT going Wigan in 2026 on home soil.
Yeah.
Who is the Charlie? Who is the sort of who's this? We've gone off piste here, but I'm going to allow it. Who is the striker by 2026 that could? Is it Balogun? I mean, certainly
got to be Balogun, Charlie. If you're not watching him already, get your eyes on him in Ligue 1. He is doing great things with Reims.
Yeah, I would love that because there's no one that is catching the eye. There's not a talent in the pipeline to say that's the guy that we got to watch. We got to watch him grow. We've had players who have dabbled in the 9, but no one has taken it consistently. No one is striking fear into an opponent with riveting pace or acceleration or finishing. So that's the only position in my mind that we're really lacking.
Charlie, do you think that America kind of fell short in the sense of the Soccer Federation where they haven't been proactive, really looking to see what players they can get, that they've been very lethargic and lazy? When you look at how proactive Canada
look at you, lazy.
I'm just telling you the lethargic truth. And you look at what France is doing. There's players out there. There's
Yunus Musa, Serginho Dest. What is that? Those are 2 players
for getting strikers.
Would you trade one of those for Jonathan David though?
Of course they would.
No, I would not.
Oh my God!
I would not. You act like Jonathan David is Mbappe. He's good. He's very good, but he's not a generational player. I'm not. Yunus Musa.
You guys ain't going to produce a generational player either.
Yunus Musa could be someone who is a
unbelievable in midfield. Who's going to score the goals, bro? We're still talking about scoring goals.
That will come.
Oh God!
I'm not trading Yunus Musa for Jonathan David. I promise you that, though.
I'll be dead by then, man.
I tell you, I have to say, if England had Yunus Musa and Jude Bellingham in 2026, we need to see if we can reverse this decision somehow. Because
not happening.
If England had those 2 in 2026, we're having that tournament. Thanks very much.
On the topic
England
of
striker after Harry Kane,
that is this is the interesting part of it. I think it is a big global question, isn't there? Where have all the strikers gone? Because
England will produce a striker, mate.
Oh, Nigel, I didn't hear a name come out of your mouth either.
I don't think there is one. I'm not sure there is.
But there is talent come through.
Oh yeah,
if Villa gave some minutes,
Southampton's academy. That's
if Villa gave some minutes to Cameron Archer, he might stand a chance. But actually, I do have a quick question for Charlie. Do we see Gio Reyna for USMNT in 2026?
Oh damn.
Don't be shy now.
I'm not. I'm still here. I'm going to say yes. There's a clear, I think a clear desire from the U.S. team to make sure that Gio Reyna addresses his attitude. And that's been clear from day one with him on the national team. And that's more of his mannerisms. We've seen players, but as a young player, to be throwing up your hands, turning your back, doing all that, you haven't done anything yet to be even doing that, right? So I think there's always been an attitude from this player. And again, it's the balance. How much do you want a player to have that attitude and play with that chip on the shoulder? But at what point does it take away from his performance and as well as the trust in the locker room? So you have players saying, hey, Gio, super talented, but not worth the headache, not worth the attitude, not worth having to deal with that type of energy on the pitch. So, and then you throw in, well, Timothy Weah performed well enough to say, well, you're not going to play on the wing because we need somebody who's dynamic and can stretch the field. You don't offer that. And Christian Pulisic, you're not taking him off the pitch. So where does he fit in that dynamic? He's not good enough to start over Timothy Weah at the moment, given what the team needed from him. And he's not good enough to start over Yunus Musa or for Christian Pulisic, because that midfield is the best part of the U.S. men's national team. Musa, McKennie, Adams. You could argue McKennie wasn't healthy enough and that maybe Gio Reyna could have played there. That's fine. But ultimately, you have to, as a young player, deal with disappointment and channel it in the right way. He has not done that. So I think it's a great learning experience. I know he's a good kid. I got to meet him and play with him in a charity match well before he made his move to Dortmund. I think he's going to use this because he's clearly gifted and he'll be a mainstay within this national team in the future.
I'm going to dive in there because I know Nigel's itching to.
Go ahead, Nigel. Let's go.
I'm not saying nothing. Go on, James, because our producer Des wants us out of here.
No, Des, you can't stop us now. Let's go. I'm fired up right now. Nigel got me cooking.
I mean, the only thing I would say as well is the one thing that Charlie is absolutely indisputably spot on about is that midfield looks like something really special, and a fully fit Weston McKennie. I think USA beat England as much as I have to grit my teeth and bear it as I say that. But who knows, maybe that would have been quite good for England, actually. If only we'd lost to the US, we would have got off France's side of the bracket and be getting ready for that final right now. Maybe. Maybe. No, definitely. Definitely. And I can leave it on that because I'm the host today. And when Ian Choi is back in charge, I'll never get away with such nonsense. So, Charlie, thank you so much for jumping across from In Soccer We Trust to join us.
Thank you.
Nigel and JJ, a pleasure as ever. And to everyone listening, thanks so much for joining us on House of
trying
Champions.
to get me heated. How am I going to end this podcast with this? Oh, my blood is boiling. Let's go.
Let's go. This is too funny. USA Athleticism. You should call it a USA Athletics Club.
Right, we've got to add Charlie to the list for the After Hours pod.
Oh, yeah. Count me in.
We've made it, folks. This was only supposed to take about 35 minutes. Thanks so much for joining us on House of Champions. Just remember, take a minute to leave us a rating and review on your favorite podcast platform. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher. Never heard of Stitcher. Anywhere you listen to podcasts, we're also available on video. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Nigel reo-coker is pointing to the QR code right this instant, just about. Thanks so much for watching. We will be back on Friday to break down the World Cup final. Argentina against France. It's going to be a cracker. We'll talk to you soon.
And more sponsorship from the USA Athletics.